Yeah, that's interesting. Because at first thought of I actually meant like this, all this entertainment as being a flight from responsibility. Because I notice when it's all getting too much, that's often a point when I kind of flee into this parallel world.
Escaping from responsibility?
Escape. Yeah. Well, you're saying now the Dharma is actually realizing that you have no responsibility.
In fact, you can think of it this way. If you want a world to escape into the world of Dhamma. That's the one that's closest to the actual reality.
Hmm.
And what you're actually escaping from is the delusions that society has given you to believe in. So instead of escaping into entertainment from that stuff that you feel burdened by, those responsibilities, and the normal way to do that is try to escape from all of that stuff by going into entertainment. And the more body parts to entertain one, the better. So, in that regard, all of the entertainment is merely an escape from the responsibilities, but that world also has a built-in promise to it because all of the films and videos and everything always have a particular outcome in mind, which means that in the first part of the film, people had to fulfill responsibilities. And so it's still, the whole movie industry supports all of the doing, all of the getting, all of the heroism, all of the competition, and we're better than they are. And keeps that whole delusional system going.
This hero's journey, maybe. I don't know if you know that term.
What? No, tell me again.
The hero's journey.
That sounds like it. Yes.
Yeah, it's
I
like a
don't know that
model.
exactly. Don't know that work, but it's probably the story that I'm telling you.
It's kind of the how a lot of stories work. It's with a person and they meet an obstacle inside themselves or outside themselves or often related, and then they work really hard to accomplish it. And then
Exactly.
it goes bad for a while, but then they overcome it and then everything's good.
Right. That's exactly it. Everything is a multi-stage process. And then people bring that to the Dhamma, thinking that they're in fact having a conflict with something that needs to be resolved. And that conflict is the difference between who they are now and enlightenment. And that enlightenment is a concept that they carry in their minds. And so now they start striving for this concept because they've got it in the Western mentality that that's the way things are done. The real enlightenment is to realize you're already enlightened. Sit down, shut up, and enjoy your life. There's nothing to do and no place to go. And that the more junk you throw out, then the emptier things get. And we like it very much that things are really empty. Love it. And yet the whole world out there is telling you to fill up, to buy more, to get more. Be materialistic. Get some money. Enjoy, 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 and yet nobody's enjoying. Everybody is suffering climbing that steep hill.
Mm.
Huh?
Yeah, I
And the
feel
whole
like
teaching of the Buddha is just to quit that.
if you quit more things, then for me it feels like things also get more intense. Like because if I watch a movie, for example, it dulls me to a certain extent. I can push that to the side, and after a while, I start suffering in
Rather than
different
saying
ways.
dulled, would you say you become disinterested in it?
Um,
That the whole intention of the movie was to keep you intensely interested in the movie.
I, yeah, I guess so.
Okay,
So
that's
one
the
comes.
job of the movie, is to keep you intensely interested, and it can't do its job because you don't have enough interest in it. Especially when you know that it's not real. That most of the stuff that you're actually looking at is not even real in the sense of all of those people. Most of it is just computer generated stuff,
Yeah.
and it's truly not real. And when you recognize that none of this is real, then our interest in the story is lost, especially since we know it's the same story in every movie,
Mm-hmm.
or at least a very few. Um, she wants him, so she hates him, and because she hates him, he wants her, and then she's got him. That's one of the favorite things.
Great story. Hmm.
One of the others is, oh, big catastrophe. We need help. We're all poor. Oh, here comes the hero. Oh, the hero has a big battle. Oh, there's a bigger battle. Oh, there's even a bigger battle. And after so many people are dead, the hero is at least still alive. And then they end the movie.
Makes it sound a bit ridiculous if you put it like that.
Yes, but it's entertaining if people get really interested in it.
Hmm. Yeah, I watched a lot of Marvel movies, these superhero movies recently.
Every one
It's
of them
like,
follows that same one, that the same theme that I just gave you, except that they've got more than one hero and they all tend to survive.
yeah, it's really, yeah. Hmm. Yeah, so that's an interesting one.
So now we're looking at it. Okay, so we can escape from that world into a real world of Dhamma. In fact, the word escape that I'm using is commonly referred to in Buddhism language as refuge. I take refuge in the Dhamma. I take refuge in the Sangha. And I really take refuge in the Buddha. Thank you very much for giving us this teaching because it really opens one's eyes. And also, thank you so much for providing a Sangha, because for 2,500 years we've had a marvelous, large organization that's kept this Dhamma alive, not in book form, but in actual teachings and teachers, handing it down one student to the next in a lineage. And that Sangha is available to anyone who is willing to jump that high that quickly.
Mhm.
Most of us need tiny little step stools to get up to that level. But anyway, the Sangha in the West will eventually take hold if the Noble Dhamma is there to support it. But until then, we have a whole lot of individuals that are diverse, beginning to know each other in the sense of who knows the Noble Dhamma and who doesn't. And that there's some very important characteristics of that in the sense of lineages and teachers in the West. If any of them are using alcohol, having sexual issues with some of their students, or actually charging money, then you can assume that that whole organization is not noble.
Okay.
That a noble organization charges no money, requests nothing, abstains in teaching abstination of alcohol, and abstains and teaches abstination of sex. And yet, look at how many different organizations have had one trouble after another. And that's partly because people want to make money off the Dhamma. They haven't really converted, and here's the point, to that noble way of looking. They're actually just looking at Buddha Sasana, or the Buddhist religion, as just another way to make money, to make a living. Though what they're selling is enormously valuable, it's missing, it's like an enormously valuable box that's locked. And the real goods are inside the box, but they don't have the key. Even though the key's been told to them many times, they just don't understand how to take that key and put it in the lock. The key is a anicca, dukkha, anatta, especially anatta. And once you turn that key and you recognize, oh, wait a minute, now the box opens and the real treasure, the real Dhamma is emptiness, that everything is empty. All of those rites, rules, rituals, and responsibilities that you were talking about are empty. If they're filled with anything, they're filled with suffering. And the suffering is that we expect by doing our responsibilities, we're going to get something out of it. But we were lied to. It's a bait and switch. And when one realizes that, you can just sit down and be happy.
It's very hard to sit down and be happy.
That's why it's a skill to be developed. It's a skill to be developed. We have to come through our anxiety so that we don't do things because of anxiety. We have to come through doing things because we want to get her done. We get through doing things intentionally to harm others, having arguments or spats. That in fact the whole point of that is that we see everybody as a friend instead of as a competitor. Husbands and wives even compete with each other, and they're the ones that should be the best of friends.
Yeah. But is it the idea that anxiety, if you come through it at some point, it just becomes less and less, or that you just have a different relationship with it?
Actually, the stronger your sati, the more often you catch yourself, and the earlier you catch yourself, so that you don't go off. In fact, the catching yourself is the recognition, oh, I'm going to take the good advice rather than do the old habit. And you make that over and over and over again, and you act wisely in the present rather than acting stupidly out of the past. And pretty soon that becomes a habit instead.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that actually on Thursday evening or so, or Friday evening, I'm not sure, that I was able to do that. And one point to choose for, all right, my normal thing would be to watch another episode of a show now, but instead I decided to read a book about, Dharma book, I guess. That felt really good in that moment because I felt like I had made a choice that was in line with my values, I guess. And then next time it was too hard and I couldn't do it. But I tried to be aware that at least one time it worked out. And yesterday,
all right, let that one be your guide. You know now that you can be successful at it. So the next time it comes up, you can say, hey, I did it once, I can do it again.
Yeah, and not project too much in the future, because sometimes I think, oh, even if I manage now, in the future I'll fail again.
There is no future. There is only habits to be changed, skills to be developed. And if you live your life unskillfully, then you'll live it according to the old habits, and it appears then that we live according to some destiny or some providence or some grand design, when in fact we were just following our old habits. So our old habits become our destiny until we change it.
Yeah, it's a concept.
By changing your habits, then you change your destiny. The habit or the destiny of drudging our way through life, and then we finally die and we hate that and we struggle with it and we struggle all of our life. Or we can change our attitude to being joyful and happy. Now, I don't care if I live or die. And when death comes, here you come, boy. Okay, finally I can get some peace. I can rest in peace and pieces. But we have to come to the face of death, because in fact most of your responsibilities is based around punishment. If you don't do what you're told to do, you're going to get punished. Well, what's the worst thing that you can do? What's the worst thing that they can do to you? Put you to death? Fine, come take me. If they can't even do that, then what can they do to give you fear? Put you in a private cell all by yourself? Fine. This is time for meditation. Let me enjoy myself. This is great. I don't have to deal with anybody except nasty guards, and they'll be my friends very soon.
I guess what it's for me a bit is the fear of being a bad person, maybe, of like maybe stopping to care about other people and then just.
Who said that you were going to stop being compassionate? Finally, in your life, you have a chance to be compassionate, to be friends with people. You can stop competing with them and be friends with them instead. That's compassion. To help somebody that you know needs help because you're looking at them and they're friends with you. Then you can really be compassionate. You don't lose your feelings for the world. In fact, you might even shed a tear or two for how sad this poor world is, and look how many people are suffering because they have no clue of the Dhamma. But you're not going to be able to teach the Dhamma until you're really happy about it, until you've really got it, until you're set on fire of happiness. Then you can teach the Dhamma.
But where does compassion come in then? From the contrast
compassion
of happiness?
Is nothing but right view. Right noble view is compassion. Right noble view is investigation, and you keep looking, but you don't take a position or a viewpoint. You keep moving around and looking at things the way they really are, and part of that process is really looking at the way that somebody is actually experiencing things probably better than they do. So I can see people the way they feel. I see it in students. I see it on the street. When I look at people, I really look at them. That's compassion, is really really look at what's going on. Other than that, compassion is a concept. Part of your responsibility bag. But with noble right view, compassion naturally arises.
That's an interesting viewpoint, yeah.
No, it's the teaching of the Buddha. But it's not a viewpoint. In fact, it's not a viewpoint. It's to stop taking viewpoints and start taking, as it were, many, many viewpoints without clinging or holding on to any one of them. Almost like as if your whole life has become a drone. You know, one of these little flying machines that's got a camera. Instead of being down on the earth where we're looking at people like that, no, we want to take an overall view. We want to really see what's going on. We want to see the dynamics. We want to see everybody in action all at the same time. So this is instead of a helicopter mom, I guess we become a helicopter Dhamma dude, taking an overview of seeing things from a higher perspective, from a noble perspective, or kind of in regard to a perspective of samadhi, or of wholeness or unity of mind. And when I use the word samadhi, I'm referring to area satya samadhi, and that's different than concentration. Everybody translates samadhi as only concentration over and over and over again, but the word has a different kind of use that then concentration kindly fits onto it. The word samadhi actually means a collection point, or things coming together. So imagine, do you know what a yurt is?
Yeah.
Okay, so imagine that the yurt's got a ridgepole, And then all of the other he's got a mainstay, main pole, the longest pole there. And then they have ridge poles that go out in all directions over to the wall sides. And at that point of collection where all of those ridge poles come to meet and contact and make it with that main pole is the samadhi. That's the high point and the collection point for those kind of buildings. And many Asian buildings are built like that. So that's what we mean by the samadhi, is when everything collects together into the mind because we're taking an overall view. American Indian teepees without a ridge pole perform the same function, where all of the poles come up to one central point and are tied, and then the teepee is wrapped with cloth. But it has that central point, and that central point's the main thing, because normally the human mind is a crowd. We lie, so we separate ourselves from the truth. We have doubts. We say, maybe this, maybe that. I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe I should do this, and then I don't like doing that. Maybe I should do that. And so the mind kind of jumps around looking for rest without finding it. And the Buddha actually had an example that there was a dog that was nearby when he was teaching, and this dog seemed to have had some sort of skin rash or mange or something like that. But unlike most dogs, this dog would lay down, and then he would scratch around, and then he'd get up and he would walk around in a circle, and then lay back down in the same place. But he wouldn't stay there for very long. He wouldn't just lay there like most dogs would, but he would get up, he would walk around, because he could not get any rest. He would lay on one side or the other, but he would lay in basically the same place. But he would always walk around and around and around. And the Buddha said, there is the human mind. Only a few dogs that have an illness will do that physically, but the humans do that all the time. Every time we come to rest, we don't stay at rest. We get up and start running around again, looking for peace and comfort and never finding it. And so your responsibility, so you've been told, is to get up and run around.
Yeah.
And your relief from those things is laying down into the entertainment, but then it doesn't give you any rest.
Yeah. Yeah, much that. I feel like I've been kind of told to be a good citizen, I guess. My parents are very good citizens, I would say. And that...
But are they happy, good citizens?
I'm not sure.
Is that an admission of no?
Yeah.
It depends upon the degree of happiness.
Yeah, I guess it's a continuum.
All right, here's a question then. Would they continue to be completely happy if they stop being good citizens? Or is their happiness dependent upon them being good citizens and doing what they're told to do?
I think so, yeah. They've built some part of their identity around that.
All right, so that at least the happiness that they have is conditional.
So
okay,
what they would tell...
Right, go ahead.
What they would say to me if we've touched upon this topic a bit sometimes, and I said, I may have said something like, but if it's conditional, it can be taken away from you, then they would just say, yeah, but that's part of life. Everyone deals with that. And we are just human.
You say that intellectually, but when it actually happens, it can be very painful.
Yeah.
As a concept, it's fairly easy to dismiss because they don't think it's going to happen. If it were imminent and about to happen, then they might have a different attitude about it. So here's the point, is that it's not about being a good person or not being a good person. It has to do with how you feel about it. And if you can feel in a certain way, then you'll behave in a certain way. And that noble way of living has its own benefits. Even if you don't meet the responsibilities that you thought you had in youth, as you mature in age and mature in wisdom, the responsibilities that you take on are more noble responsibilities instead of the little ones.
Noble responsibilities.
Right. Noble responsibilities would be to not cheat others, not harm them, not do any damage, not to speak ill of others at least without an intentional purpose of doing good. And so you become noble, but you do that because the mind is noble. It's collected together. And part of the reason that it's collected together now is because it's not scattered among all of the responsibilities. If we've given up responsibilities, then in fact we give up the entire world and take on, and when I say the entire world, let's call it the world of laws, rights, rules, rituals, do what you're told to do things what you're, the propaganda, fake news, real news, all of that kind of stuff, and recognize that we can put that aside and know that our happiness is not dependent upon any of that.
I'm still noticing some doubts also in talking with other people, that they say, but that's just not realistic. And we're social animals, for example, and we just need the support.
Absolutely. So let's look at that, because see what we haven't done yet is I'm just talking about to put something new in place. And you haven't to understand what that new in place is, and so it sounds like it's anarchy rather than something that's better. That in fact what I'm pointing out is all of the stuff of the world is subject to suffering and therefore is fairly low class, and we need to put something higher class in its place. And that if you put something higher class in its place, one of the things that will become noticeable to people is that the way that you behave is a higher class.
Okay.
That this can be seen. Noble behavior is recognized and appreciated even if it's never mentioned. And one of the qualities of noble behavior is friendliness, a smile, happiness, a willingness to help, but only when you're asked to help. That we stop volunteering for anything.
Stop volunteering. Okay.
Yeah, we don't volunteer for anything because what do I want? Why would I volunteer?
Maybe I just feel very compassionate and I want to.
Yeah, so then you wait around and drop some hints. I've taught my family how to get the dogs out of the house without doing anything other than going and getting a small piece of cheese and laying little bits of it in a path, and the dog comes right out. And I don't ever have to tell the dog anything. I just lay drops, and then the students either come or not in that regard. But the whole point that I'm getting at here is that when we volunteer for something, we want something out of it. We want revenge. We want something in return. And if you come to the point of not wanting anything, then you stop acting. You come to an end of action. And so we sort of wait around for something good to happen that we can marvel at and chuckle over and share.
Makes me think of, and that's again connected to this responsibility thing about these really big problems that we're facing now worldwide, where
If
some people say we
everyone
have
that
to
I
take
know,
strong action.
okay, exactly. All right. Let's first off have this analogy. Imagine that there is um, a creek and a wagon is stuck in the creek, old style, not an automobile, but a wagon, okay? And the wagon is stuck in the creek. And so the farmer asks for help, and all the farmers from all around come and help push that wagon out of the creek. And because there's so many people pushing on that wagon, some people can only get a place to put their hand in. And so everybody's pushing on that wagon to get it out of the creek, and all they do is just crush the wagon because everybody's pushing it in their own idea and their own way. That in fact, another way of looking at it would be that maybe the wagon is okay where it is and everybody can rest. So if people stop, and for instance, if the whole world had the Dhamma and everybody sit down and be happy, then you wouldn't have a bunch of greedy people trying to take everybody's money. You wouldn't have big governments because you wouldn't need one. People would be taking care of each other and all the world's problems would just disappear. Even the executives in the oil companies would quit their jobs. The refineries would shut down. Everybody would sit at home fat and happy. Now that would be paradise, but they're not going to do it until we can actually teach them. But it happens one person at a time.
Takes a lot of patience.
Yes. What is patience? That's nothing but lack of greed. By the way, I've got another student who is calling. Is it okay with you if I add him to the call?
Yeah, sure.
All right. He hasn't been online in a while.
Okay.
Well, hello, Dylan.
Hi.
How's it going?
This is Christian.
Hey.
It's nice to meet you,
Nice
Christian.
to meet you.
Dylan, if you don't mind, we can just sort of listen in on what we're talking about because we're right in the middle of figuring out what our responsibilities are.
That's fine. I don't mind that.
All right. So, Christian, we were back to the point of seeing the world as sort of artificial, and that the rule systems that were set up were not set up for your benefit, so that your responsibilities then are to do things that you're not actually going to get the benefit of. And that's the way that society is set up. And the way that it's going, like for instance, especially in the United States, that the wages are remaining stagnant while the big people are the ones at the top are getting more and more and more wealthy. But the people who are actually doing all the work are not getting the benefit of it. And now the people are beginning to wake up, beginning to figure that out. And maybe if they just stop, everybody quit their job in the United States, the big fat cats would wake up really fast. Believe me, they would wake up in a hurry if everybody just quit their job. Anybody that works less than $20 an hour just resign today. Quit.
Maybe I should resign.
No, not unless it's done in mass. You're not ready to do it all by yourself. Perhaps you should resign because you know it's the right thing to do for you rather than sending a message. So let's look at it then from the position that responsibility is kind of like the golden rule. And there's three kinds of golden rules. Let's set the one of Jesus aside because everybody knows that one, and that's actually friendship. Treat others the way you would like to be treated is actually a quite marvelous thing, and that's why it's been labeled as golden rule. But there's two other golden rules that need to be looked at. The first one And the one that's really the big one now is he who has the gold makes the rules. Is that not right? He who's got the gold makes the rules. All the money controls all of the politics, and they do it in order to gain more control. But there's an older rule that was been in effect for a long time and continues to be. And that is, he who makes the rules gets the gold. So this is a relationship between power and money. The relationship between power and money is he who has enough power to start making the rules will do so in his own favor so that he starts accumulating the gold. Right? But later, when the gold's like over generations and generations of time, because the gold has already been collected by the guy who made the rules, now he who's got that gold continues to make the rules so that he can continue to make his pile of gold higher and higher and higher. And that is who you are responsible to. Sorry, but we can break that down into three groups. The three groups are big business, big government, big religion, and adding a fourth, big education. And they're all in the same game. The educational system takes little kids and puts them into the system. If you work hard and learn what I have to teach you, then you can graduate to the next grade. And they keep telling them that all the way sometimes into far past adulthood. But then you have to buy a car, get a house, get a job, and get to keep getting into deeper and deeper into fulfilling your responsibilities. And when you recognize that that's a game to play, and that you don't necessarily have to play the game, you can understand it. Well, the Buddha really did understand it. He understood this whole system so much so that he had a Pali term for it. It's called Sila Bhatta Paramasa. And what it means is attachments to rites, rules, regulations, rituals. And you can see that it's even buried down to the instinctual level of the nesting instinct, because he who runs the nest is the leader. He makes the rules. If you don't follow the rules of the nest, out you go, you're dead. That happened when we were still sleeping in trees and fully covered with hair. And so we've been doing this rule thing for a long, long time, and it's gotten deeply buried. The Buddha calls it an underlying tendency to follow the rules. And what I'm asking you guys to do is to wake up and recognize that following these rules are not to your advantage. That there's a higher set of rules, a higher set of standards that are better used. And that higher set of rules, that higher standard, is actually the teaching of the Buddha and can be said in just three little words. Dukkha, dukkha nirodha. In other words, it's your job now to see suffering as it is, to see it in yourself, to see it in others, to start having compassion for other people, to recognize suffering so that you can very quickly bring it to a close. And the first job that you have is to stop making yourself suffer. The second job that you have along with that is to stop spreading your suffering to others and giving that suffering away free of charge, or sometimes at a fee. And then ultimately is when you start feeding that back to other people. When it's time to be a teacher, then we can begin to spread that Dhamma so that it's worthwhile, so that many people with enough teachers, but all of the teaching has to be done on an individual basis. You cannot gather 100,000 people in a stadium and teach them the Dhamma. It just doesn't work that way.
Because they all have different points where they're at, where they need different
advice.
advice.
Exactly. And because we do not have the feedback, so that I can't talk directly to the students, or one or two or three. But more than 3 students, it's very hard to teach. And And so we have to work with each student to make sure that they're nodding their heads at the right time. And that's the first one of many clues. But the point that I'm making is that don't worry about what real responsibilities that you have, that ultimately your biggest responsibility will be to the Dhamma, to the spread of the Dhamma, for the welfare and benefit of future generations. That's why the Buddha taught. Until then, your job is to first off, get your own mind cleaned out, solve your own suffering. And so this becomes a new rule of life. And that is dukkha, dukkha, nirodha. That's your new rule. Now you apply that every time you have an opportunity. So if a cop stops you, you want to apply that rule. You want to be really nice to him. You want to cooperate with him. You want to give him every reason to like you. You want to be his best friend by the time that interview is finished.
And the tricky part to doing that is you have to calm down your own adrenaline, so it starts with you and what's going on inside your head.
That's why we call this what? Duh. That's the teaching. That's it. That's what we mean by following good advice at that point in time when you need it most. When the cop stops you, boy, do you need the good advice of be friendly and be happy. Don't compete with him and don't give him a hard time. Don't give him anything to go looking for. Cooperate with him fully. Thank you very much, officer. I really appreciate it. I understand how much work you guys have out here. I'll be willing to cooperate and give you anything that you need.
For me, I feel like it's more the other direction. I tend to be too nice, maybe sometimes, to the point that I even, like now that I think of maybe quitting my job at some point soon, I have talks about my salary and stuff coming up. I kind of think I don't want to be unfair to the company and demand a lot of stuff and then say bye. And there's
if you did, then that would be playing a game. And you may not get the benefit out of it that you thought. It may, in fact, if you're going to quit, it might be a very good idea to quit on the very best of terms.
It's to the point that even my boss is telling me I should demand more. To like.
Well, you don't have to tell him, but you can have the thought, I do demand more. I demand a huge amount of more. I demand two things, in fact. Emptiness and freedom. And one of the things I want to be empty of is this job.
I fully get that.
Well, the important point at that level, actually introducing kind of a new topic, but it's germane right now, and that is the whole idea of materialism. How much materialism do we need? The society has been telling you a long time that you need a lot of materialism, so you have to work for a long time and a hard job in order to get all the materialism that is required to fulfill your responsibility of being a good citizen. But the Buddha teaches, oh no, let's look at what's actually the minimum requirements. What would be adequate for you? Especially in four regards: adequate clothing, adequate shelter, adequate food, and adequate medical attention. These are adequacies that are fully provided for by the monks, by the Thai community. But in the United States, and I think in Europe, there may be a whole lot of people that don't even have those four things. They're living below that level of adequate housing, or adequate food, or adequate medical attention. I don't think very many people go without adequate clothing, unless we're here in Thailand, in the tropics. So the point here is that if you are going to quit your job, your responsibility to yourself is to make sure that you have these four basic qualities, because if you don't, you will fall into suffering. Because you don't have adequate food, or you don't have adequate, it looks like you've got adequate clothing for the next 5 years right there on your body.
Right.
So you've got that one nailed. The question is, how low can you go for housing, or where to go for housing? Can you live in a community of others so that you can share housing with like-minded nobles who are friends with one another, rather than kids that are trying to save a buck and fight with each other over what's in the refrigerator? I've been there too.
Student housing.
But in any case, when you figure out what's your basic level that you need in order to sustain life happily, then go for that.
Yeah.
One of the ways that I could say things in the deep, dark past, I have retired 4 times. Finally, the last one took. But I retired and came to India and stayed years, and then went back, and then I came back again and retired again, and then came back. Now, on the 4th one, it finally took. And so you can move in and out like that. When you're working, gather up all the cash you can and don't spend any money. Just be cheap, Charlie.
Yeah.
And then let that money go for a few years while you're out playing in paradise. And that's a lifestyle that's not approved of. Sorry.
Yeah.
But we have a name for it. It's called the Dhamma Bum. Living according to the Dhamma and living free. Some, they'll take jobs in foreign countries to teach English or something like that for a while, and then they'll go hang out on the beach again. And this is a perfectly excellent lifestyle, as opposed to being in a business suit and grubbing for money and harming people and all of that kind of world.
It takes some confidence, I assume, in order to...
I assume it does. In fact, the Pali word for it is Shraddha. Shraddha is wrongly translated into the word faith. Well, we're not talking about faith, because in the English language, the word faith has been stolen by the Christians to mean believing in bullshit. But Shraddha means the confidence that you build through correct Dhamma practice.
Mm-hmm.
That when you come to that first knowledge, that you know that no matter how obstructed the mind can get, you can clean that stuff out, you can come back to the here now, and you can enjoy the benefits of being here now. And you do that over and over and over and over and over again. And as you do, the doubt about can I do this is eradicated. So in fact, let me talk to you like this about doubt. Doubt has 2 major components. One of the components is doubt about who you are in the sense of responsibility. In other words, are you in relationship to the world? Are you in fact a soul that the religions say exists? In other words, is there a God to blame? Is there a mom to blame? Is there a society to blame? Or am I going to make the decision that I am 100% responsible for everything that happens to me, no matter what? I cannot blame anything for it. I've got to take that second noble truth and apply it, that all suffering comes from my own lobha moha dosa, my own greed, my own ill will, and my own delusions. That's the only thing that I can suffer over.
Mm-hmm.
And so I separate that, and I stop blaming the outside world for my problems and start being ready, at least, to think about fixing my own problems. So the second step is, do you have the that it takes to actually fix your own problems? Slowly at first, we start as victims, not sure I could do this. But over time, that Shraddha becomes developed so that you know eventually, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that you are in fact responsible for everything that happens to you, and you love it. You really, really like it like that. Because you are now in charge, and you can run your life, and you can feel the way that you want to feel, and you can put aside anxiety, and you can put aside fear of death, and you can put aside conceit, and be friends with everybody. And this is the natural teaching of the Buddha. This is what's enlightenment. Enlightenment is not way up there someplace. It's just when you're lighthearted. When you're free of the responsibilities of the world, when you're empty of that kind of baggage, that's real freedom. You can be friends with anybody. You don't have to compete with anybody. You can just be friends. The Pali word for that is Kalya Metta. And that's strongly recommended in Buddhism, that we should treat everyone around us as friends, not as competitors, not as one up, one down, not as senior to the other, but everybody is friends.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of the question that I meant to ask you when I called you, which is, how do you maintain mindfulness in social interactions? Because I find that it's easy to maintain mindfulness on my own. Just disallow it a little bit whenever I'm talking to people and I get either lost in thought or absorbed in the conversation or whatever.
That's an excellent question. And is fairly, let us say, far along in the practice. Because, in fact, the Buddha recommends that we start in seclusion so that we don't have to deal with others. And so when you're alone, it is actually, we're capable of developing. So then when we're in the world, but not necessarily around people, but we're not just sitting still, but when you're working with the computer or whatever like that, there are certain techniques that we can do that's going to build mindfulness up fairly quickly, because we want to keep doing it throughout the day. One of them would be setting a timer on the cell phone, and every time it goes off, we say, never mind, stop everything. Take a deep breath, relax, have a little Dhammarato moment, be here now, and really, really delicious moment. This is great. And after we really come back to be here now, then we go back to whatever we were doing, and then the alarm goes off again, and we start again. Isn't it wonderful to be here now? Oh, I love the Dhamma so much. Oh, thank you, Buddha. Thank you. And so we do it again, over and over again. But then there's more to it, if you like. And that is, every time that we get out of a chair, we do it with intention. What did we want? Many people will get out of the chair and go to the other room, and then they'll say, wait a minute, what did I want? So we're going to change all of that and a whole lot more. When people get out of a chair, they almost always go from sitting to walking. The way that we put our feet and everything about getting out of the chair has to already do with walking. So we're going to change that completely by saying, no, we're going to put an intermediate point in there by standing. So we're sitting down, and when we stand up where our feet were when we were in the chair, and we just stand there, and we take a deep breath, and we remind ourselves, why did we get out of the chair?
Right.
And then we go to whatever we were going to do. The next one in that same regard is every time we come to a closed door. If the doorway is open, never mind. But if it's a closed door that you have to take an action to open the door in some way, then what we do is the same thing. We come to that door and stop and have the intention, or why am I going through this door? What is my intention to go through this door? And when I get that cleared up, then I'm going to open that door and proceed through. The next one, and I'm giving these in rapid order. I don't know if you can remember or not. These things take quite a while to really establish. In fact, they're even difficult to establish by talking to them about you really fast. But the last one is, in this part about being alone, is whenever you're about to sit down, make mental note that as you're sitting down, you're going to go into as deep a relaxed state as you possibly can, that you're literally going to take not only a load off your feet, but you're going to take a complete load off your mind. Take a big, deep out breath and just let it out. Let it be a really powerful nibbana moment. start enjoying that third noble truth. Really get into it and let yourself be completely at peace as you're sitting down after you've gotten up. Let this be a complete relaxation. All right. So now that you're established in those kind of things, so that you're waking yourself 30, 40, 50 times a day and coming to the here now that many times a day, then naturally you can go to this next step of how am I going to deal with other people. So the first thing that you need to work with is to remember just before you start meeting with people, because you're going to know in advance. Somebody's knocking on the door, or you even see somebody walking up. That's enough time for you to make a very strong mental note. I am going to be present for this conversation.
Okay.
I demand of myself to be here now.
So
This
go
is a
into it with a
dangerous.
very deliberate, conscious intention.
Yes. That with also the thought of this is the time when I suffer the most due to my stupidity of not watching what's going on. And I demand of myself with that lion's roar, that strong determination that I will be present for this talk. And that when people talk to me, I listen to what they say. I will be here now when they're talking. That I will stop talking if anybody starts to talk over me. I will shut up and give them the floor and listen to what they're saying. I will not try to teach anybody something that they do not want to know.
That's a good one.
Yes. Do not give gifts that are not well received. Watch the people closely to only speak things that are wholesome, beneficial, and easily to be received. Do not shove anything down anybody's throat. Above all, be friends. Be friendly with anyone that you come in contact. Smile at them. Let them know that you are not dangerous.
Right.
Even if you are. Because you probably are not as dangerous as you thought you were.
Yeah.
All right. And then when you leave the conversation, make sure that at that point in time that you again relax, that you let all of the tension go that happened in that conversation. Let it go. Do not walk away from that conversation thinking about that conversation. Let it finish.
Right. That's a really good one, because as somebody with a history of social anxiety, a tendency that I have, that I'm sure is actually pretty common, is as soon as the conversation ends, you start thinking about it. Start thinking about it and thinking and thinking and thinking, and that mental proliferation, and it just causes suffering. It doesn't actually, and rationally I know that it doesn't actually help anything.
It's both painful and not helpful.
Exactly.
So now that you thoroughly agree with this, you know exactly how to be on guard and for what to be on guard. And you also know that you need training in sati to remember to be on guard. That's what all of these exercises about sitting, standing up and sitting down and door walking and timers and all of that kind of stuff. When students start doing that, they start waking up really fast. You see, a lot of people have the idea that meditation or Dhamma is all about sitting on a cushion in seclusion or in private. But even if you practice and practice well for 1 hour a day, what that means is, under normal conditions, you're going to spend the next 23 hours of that day back in your old bad habits.
Right.
So they meditate 3 hours a day, which only means that they're on 21 hours a day in bad habits. But when we start practicing with these wake-up triggers, then we begin to start waking up and remembering very, very quickly, over and over and over and over and over again. So we're laying a new foundation, basically almost like we're practicing a musical instrument.
Right.
To wake up, to be here now, to be joyful, to be a lion, not a wimp. And I just mentioned the 4 qualities of the Eightfold Noble Path that we need the most. And when we use those things, then we become unified of the mind, so that we become a pinnacle or a noble-minded one. And so we need
Become
those 4
undivided.
things. We need that right view, that being mindful and awake is less suffering or no suffering as opposed to being asleep. That's one's right view. That's an amazing part of right view. It is better to be awake and be here now than it is to rummage around in the past or the future or think about things or let the mind wander. No, be here now. And what I mean by be here now is basically to be in the senses, to be seeing what you see rather than thinking about what you see, to actually hear what you hear rather than thinking about what you hear. And most of all, with the body, to feel what the body is doing, to be here present, to be here now, so that we've got the senses of alert, awake, and we're in this present moment solidly. And we want to practice that over and over and over and over again until it becomes its own habit. This is the right way to practice. It's not, we only use the cushion to get ourselves started, to get it kick-started so that we know what to do. And now we start putting it into practice all the time, anytime we can think of it. But the most important quality at that point is don't give yourself the challenge, oh, I've got to do it all the time, because that sets yourself up for failure. So that every time you say, oh, I wasn't doing it, then that's a reason to suffer. We always have to make it positive. You give yourself benefit. It may have been 2 weeks since you had your last mindfulness breath, but when it comes, oh wow, this is so good. And I do not have to say, and I should have been doing this all along. There is no reason to put that piece of crap into it.
So what do you do when that comes up automatically?
What comes up automatically?
The thoughts of, I should have been doing this all along, or whatever.
See them. See them. And when you see them, you say, aha, I caught you. You're a shoulda. I know about shouldas, wouldas, and couldas, and you're a shoulda. I caught you. That's how you deal with it.
Okay.
And soon those shouldas will hide in the woods. Because they know what happens when they come up. Aha, I caught you, you shoulda. This is the right attitude, the attitude of a lion, that you are not a victim of those should-haves.
Oh, and the attitude that it's fun, too. You can make a game out of it.
Duh. Which means that life becomes a joy, life becomes a game, life becomes a dance. The Pali word for it is Leela. The whole world is in a dance. Everything is dancing. Everything is joyful. Everything is playful. And it's only the human beings that are suffering their way through it.
Right. Right.
And all we have to do is sit down and enjoy ourselves. We don't have to suffer anymore.
It's almost too simple.
I think that's some good closing words for me. I gotta go work soon. So.
I gotta go. I understand. All right. Christian, before you go, were you the one who was mentioning about Tucker?
Yeah, right.
Okay, good. Right. I wanted to make sure it was you because I've already been in email exchanges with him.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. You and Ferdinand both will be in that retreat.
Sorry?
Another student will be in that retreat.
Oh, really?
Yes, his name is Ferdinand.
Ferdinand, okay. I'll see if I'll see him there. All right, cool. I'll try to dance my way through it and stuff.
You will.
So I couldn't just hear that. That was very quiet for me.
All right. So here's what you do: look for the guys who keep smiling, and you'll eventually run in on them.
I'll do that.
All right. We'll see you later.
Yeah, thank you. It's nice to see you, Dylan. Goodbye.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
So, Dylan, you have anything else?
Hmm. Yeah, something that's just now coming to mind. In the suttas, it talks about having wise friends, hanging out with wise people, which sort of goes
Okay.
along the same lines of what we've been talking about. So, how do you go about finding wise friends? How do you distinguish them from everyone else?
Where do you live?
Nearby Asheville.
Asheville. That's right. That's right. Okay. Actually, Asheville, North Carolina is a place that you're more likely to find noble-minded people than you will in other places in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
That Asheville has been a hot spot and has been known to be a hot spot since the 1970s.
Right.
Okay, and you probably already know that. So you're going to find meditation groups, you're going to find sittings, you're going to find, let us say, a Rinpoche or two.
Mm-hmm.
There are groups of people who have gotten together to get some land so that they can actually go to that piece of land and check out.
Yeah.
They've built their own sanghas. That's happened on more than one occasion or more than one place in Asheville. Literally, Asheville is a really good place. You don't have to ask me that question. You know what's going on there better than I do. And so that's the kind of communities that you would want to go for, are those who already know enough about Dhamma to want to leave the world, or at least to gain some value out of the Dhamma.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You probably will want more likely to establish your relationships with the teachers rather than new students.
Right. Okay, I'll look into that. Another thing that's coming to mind just now is recently I've been noticing, and this also kind of ties into the same theme of losing mindfulness in social situations. So recently I've been noticing that when I talk to somebody who's a little bit more neurotic or has more negativity going on inside themselves, I find myself taking personal responsibility for that as if, and
As
rationally I
if you
know
didn't
that.
have enough dukkha and you want to take it on free of charge.
And it's not
Please,
mine. I know that it's not mine.
exactly. Please recognize that everyone has to participate in that second noble truth, that you are not responsible for other people's behavior.
So how do you reconcile that with having compassion for those people? How do you have compassion for somebody without taking
Be
on their...
friendly with them. Be friends with them. Smile when they're talking. Don't disagree with them.
Okay.
Cajole them. Have pity upon them and express that. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that you can't get along with your Uncle Tom.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah, neurotics need love too. Believe me, we love too. We really need love. You will have a lot of friends if you're good to the neurotics.
Yeah. There's a lot of
One
us
of the
out there, I
qualities
know.
One of the qualities of the neurotics is that they talk too much, especially the ones who have neurosis due to anxiety, which is what I assume. So they talk a lot. They keep talking and talking and talking and talking. Let them talk. You can be happy while you smile. When they talk about suffering, you say, yes, I see you suffering. And then occasionally you can say, but you can smile instead.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how you deal with it. Be friends, be happy, and be silent.
Be receptive.
Pardon?
I said be receptive.
Yeah, that's how you will be received.
Okay. Yeah, that all makes perfect sense. I'll just, like you said earlier, I'll have to make a practice of, going into it with that conscious intention.
That's it. Bingo. You've already got that intention. You've already got basically that right view.
Mm-hmm. Because I mean,
yes. Go ahead.
when all these unskillful tendencies come up, I can see it in retrospect, and I can see all the problems with it. But it's when it's actually happening in the moment that I kind of, I forget. Like I said, I lose mindfulness. So.
Right. So that means that you need to be prepared in advance. Bad feelings, 5 seconds ahead. Conversation with another person, 5 seconds before, 3, 2. Are you ready for it? Here they are. That's.
Okay.
That's what wisdom is all about, is seeing what's happening right before it happens.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's almost like trajectory. If you see someone pointing a gun, all you have to do is look, and you can figure out what they're going to hit, what they're shooting at, before they pull the trigger. That's
right.
Wisdom, is to be able to see trajectory, to be able to see, oh, this is not the right alley to walk down tonight.
Gotcha. Okay.
So,
yeah.
But you have to be ready for it. That's what mindfulness is all about, is to wake that part up and say, be on guard.
Mm-hmm. Mindfulness and intention.
Well, in that regard, I would call it right effort. The right effort to be happy, the right effort to come out of the old ways of dealing with people, and the effort to deal with them in mindful, happy, intelligent ways.
Right. And the effort to not take anything too seriously.
That's the right attitude, though. That now we're dealing with attitude. So now we've done all 4: right view, right memory, right sati, right effort, and right attitude.
Mm-hmm.
The attitude of friendliness, the attitude of we're in this together, the attitude of watching for suffering so that we can avoid it.
Right.
Imagine that the world is like a cow pasture, and you've got to walk across that cow pasture, and you have to watch every step, because if you don't watch where you're going to wind up to your shoelaces in cow pies.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And by the way, you know who left those cow pies?
Sorry?
There they are. I say, and by the way, you know who left those cow pies? Darn, those are my cow pies I'm stepping in.
Yeah. And even when I do these, whatever unskillful thing it was, it's always nice to be able to look at it in retrospect and laugh at how ridiculous that was.
Mm-hmm. Yes, even if you see it after it happens, you can still do, aha, I caught you. Finally, I caught you. But you've been had now. You've been seen. And I'm going to be watching for you next time when you come up. I'll catch you before you get here.
Right. Okay, yeah. It's going to be fun to start putting that into practice.
Excellent. I'm glad that you called. It's been a while.
Yeah, I actually might start calling more frequently now because I got this new job and I'm working night shifts, so it should fit into my schedule a little bit better.
Excellent. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So never mind, we'll start again. Okay, Dylan, well, we'll see you.
Okay, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Alrighty, bye-bye.